Hello, folks. I am coming to you with an update. I want to make an updated video to Air Force and commissioning and my process in commissioning in the Guard. I just got a phone call today and I wanted to make a video and explain the decision and what my next step would be if the decision are a certain way. Um, so so I got a phone call today from my captain in my squadron, who was on the board. She was the center panel. She was the main board member, and she have a conversation with me for a good hour, explaining the decision and why the decision is what it is. So I got my decision back, and I did not make the board, or I did not make the commission. And if you watched my last video, which is a bit long, so I'm gonna summarize it here. I accidentally sent my lieutenant, who was on the board, a text that was meant for a different officer who wrote me a letter of recommendation from the reserve. I'm currently in the Guard and I was trying to commission in the Guard, and I sent it to the wrong lieutenant, and I sent it to him, saying that the board went well, but we'll see if this interview would be good enough for me to carry myself past the tribalism that the Guard may have. And it went to the wrong person. The person was on in the board, and it created, let's just say, drama. Now, today with the captain, she did say that that impacted me zero, that that does not impact my decision at all, but I don't really buy it. I did not really buy it at all. And she said that in the Guard we're not tribal at all. But then in the next sentence, she does say that we prefer to commission someone who been in the Guard and show loyalty for a little longer. You know, so you it's a counteracting comment that she did make. But I don't want to trash talk my unit or anything. I think she was very nice in explaining why I did not make it, and she did explain that she does care about my future and she would like me to continue to apply for commission in the Guard. So, so my frustration aside, I am very thankful for the opportunity, and I did say I thank you for the opportunity and thank you for taking the time to talk to me, because in the reserve, when I went up to commission, they did not explain at all why I did not make the board. I had to track down the chief, and it was because I did not sit at the position of attention. So so I did not make the board, um, and I did want to talk a little bit about tribalism in the Air Force. So if you want to go to the component that are tribal to the least tribal, you would go from Guard, Reserve, then Active Duty. Now, the Guard, um, the Guard, they'll tell you that they're not tribal, and they'll especially if you talk to the officer, they're very good at picking their words. They're really good at picking their words and being very political. But if you listen to their wording, they will tell you that they prefer someone who been in the Guard a little longer. They prefer someone who show more loyalty to the Corps, because the reason is that they don't want you to commission into that base, and then they waste all this money on you, and then you move somewhere else to another base or to another component. But I think that that kind of defeat the purpose of one team, one fight. We are one Air Force, and we should be happy if one officer is going from one position in one base to another position in another base or another component, because it's still one fight, and we're here to fight to protect American lives and to protect the freedom of all American. And it should not be a us versus them mentality. But that is neither here nor there. I made a little mistake by sending the text to the wrong person, and I think that deeply impacted my decision. And I believe that her that me being so new to the Guard, I have only been in the Air Force National Guard for um, around 6 months. So I think that also impacted the decision as well. If I've been in the Air Force for 7 years. If I've been in this unit for 7 years, my chances probably would have gone up a little bit. So there's other reasons as well, and I probably made a few mistakes in the interview and say things that are I probably shouldn't have said. I think I said that commissioning in the Guard is easier than in the reserve, and I did not mean that at all. I just meant there's just more opportunity opening. But when you're that nervous and stuff like that, you tend to say things that you know that kind of blurred out. I was informed that I am a very bright applicant, that I have a very high academic credentials, and that I have a very high um, um, academic and reasoning skill in engineering and whatnot. So she said that that's a plus. She's recommending me to go into the JAG Corps, which requires you to get a law degree. So I have not started my law school yet. So that's another 3 years before I get commissioned into the law if I do go that route, and I probably will in the near future. Um, so this come to my next point at the 6 minute mark on what is my next steps. Now, the first option is to just stay in the Guard into this unit and continue to apply for officer position over and over again because they do come available quite often. So let's say the next month come around, I could apply to let's say a security forces position or civil engineer position open. I could apply to that. Now, am I likely to get it? Guard is same culture, very new, so that's some the dice that I need to throw. Usually, it's very competitive, and usually there's one position to open once a year, and you have a lot of applicants. The next option is to go into another branch, not component, another branch. Why am I going to considering another branch instead of a component? Because in order to commission into the Guard or the reserve, you have to already be in that unit. Now, I used to be in the Air Force Reserve. Now I am out. I'm in the Guard. That does not make me a member anymore. I have to go back into the reserve to commission into the reserve. Now, for active duty, I could apply for it, but then you need to get a very high AFOQT score and all these things. And I still want to be in doing it part time. I am doing a civilian job full time, and my wife is in medical school, so that's also not an option. Now, my next option is to go to another branch. And now there are a few different branches in the uniformed service. I believe there are 8 in total. There is the United States Army, United States Air Force, United States Navy, United States Marine Corps, United States Space Force, United States Coast Guard, NOAA Commission Corps, and USPHS Commission Corps. So those are the component and branches that I could go in. I am currently looking into transferring branches into the Army, the Coast Guard, and the Navy. The other branches I either don't qualify for or I don't want to join. So I could, and I'm looking for the reserve component. So for the Army, I could go into do OCS for the Army, and they'll commission me tomorrow. I already talked to a recruiter. They want me, and I could be an officer. But the problem with the Army is the training. I have been enlisted for 7 years now. I already went to basic training in 2016. That was 7 years ago from the date of this recording. It's almost exactly 7 years ago. I do not want to go to the Army basic training all over again, then before I even go to OCS. So in order to go into the, like all officer in the United States Army, unless you are a direct commission or you have a specialty degree, like medical, like doctor or lawyer or something like that, or chaplain, you don't have to go to basic training with all the new recruits coming in 17 to 19 years old. And I do not want to be there for 10 months getting yelled at by MTL every day. I already done that. I already did that rite of passage. Now, but the Army require that if you're not from the Marine Corps, then you have to redo your basic training, commission, and I do not want to do that. My next, but that is a good option on the back burner. My next option is to go into the U.S. Coast Guard, which is very similar to where my wife is commissioned right now. She is commissioned into the USPHS, the United States Public Health Service. It's the only medical corps. The corps, the whole branch is only medical, and the Coast Guard, the whole branch is the full branches, but they don't have a medical branch corps in the branch. So there are sister branches to each other because USPHS do a lot of contracting into the Coast Guard, and they are the medical corps for the Coast Guard. Now they don't get deployed with the Coast Guard or anything. So that's the best part about being in USPSS. Now I don't qualify for the USPHS because I do not have the degree, the medical degree, to be in the USPHS. I do have the degree to be in the Coast Guard, so I might apply to the Coast Guard. I missed the reserve commissioning program, which is in the beginning of June, the cutoff date. So I have to wait until next year of 2024, probably June, the beginning of June of next year, to apply to the U.S. Coast Guard to commission as the officer. My other option is to commission into the U.S. Navy. Now, the Navy does not commission a reserve officer directly. You have to have some experience in the field, and that is a minimum of 3 years in the experience for you to be commissioned into the reserve. You could be also commissioned into the reserve if you are already active duty officer, which I was not, or if you are in a very specialty program such as nuclear. Now I have a degree in physics that's very much related to the nuclear program, so I'm looking to commission into that reserve component into the U.S. Navy. Now I'm talking to a recruiter right now. It's a very competitive program, so we'll see what's happened with that. Next is the U.S. Army. I know I already talked about the U.S. Army, but this is the Army Direct Commissioning Program. If you are in a specialty degree or experience, now you have to have experience. So I am a mechanical engineer by trade in the civilian world. They could direct commission me into that program, but you have to have at least 3 years of work experience in the engineering program. I only have a few months under my belt, actually a month, when it comes to engineering work. Now I have a degree in that field, but that does not qualify me for that direct commissioning program. Now I can still go into OCS. I need to do boot camp over again, and I have to go to OCS, and that would be 10 weeks of boot camp plus 12 weeks of OCS. If I do that route, that would be a total of 22 weeks, not including in-processing. In-processing could take a week to 2 weeks as well, so that could add another week to 2 weeks on top of that. So if I were to go that route, not direct commissioning, then that would take 5 months away from my family, especially if I just want to do reserve or guard. So that's a huge factor when considering the Army. But I am looking into the direct commissioning program where you don't need to do basic over again, and you do not need to go to OCS. They'll send you to a specialty officer training school where they're extremely very nice to you for 5 weeks. So if I qualify for that, and I qualify for 1 out of, I think, 7 direct commissioning program that they have, and that is the logistic officer. I am in contact with the recruiter right now, and we'll see if they'll direct commission me into the U.S. Army to be a logistic officer, which is actually the funniest thing. It's the exact same program I applied for in the Guard to commission as the logistic officer, which is what I just got denied from. So if I do get this position, it would kind of be a good laugh. It's like, it's kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna do the same thing that I got denied for in the Air Force, in the Army, and who knows, I could even transfer that knowledge into the Air Force because they don't need to retrain me. I could probably come into the same unit as a logistic officer. It would be the funniest thing. Like it would be like, oh, you don't want to commission me? I'll go somewhere else, and they'll commission me for the same job, and I'll come back. And that's just kind of that would be the biggest laugh ever. Now, I'm not holding any grudges against the National Guard. It might seem that way. I am a little frustrated. I've been trying to commission for 7 years now. I went into the Air Force, day one, enlisted to boot camp with the intention to commission, and I decided not to go officer first because I wanted to know what it's like to be an enlisted, so I can better relate to my enlisted airmen under me first. But what happened was that once you're enlisted, the standard for commissioning in the Air Force is a lot higher when you're coming in the ROCT program, where you come in as a college student. You never serve a day in your life, and you can just come waltz right in as long as you pass the test. That they have the AFOQT, which is not very high to qualify. Let me tell you. So those are my options. As of this point, I am able to. I do have other options, and that is to get my law degree or get a higher um, advanced degree in my field and get more experience in my field, and then try commissioning again. But that is going to be a different discussion, and that's going to be at the minimum 3 years from now. So, and I'm not opposed to commissioning into the JAG, but I would like to, for the next 3 years of my life, be an officer, because I have been enlisted for 7 years already, and by the time 3 years from now, I'll be at my 10-year mark. By the time I get my commission and get done with all my training, I would be ready to retire at that point. So I would like to commission sooner than later. So that's my train of thought. Let me know if you have any question about commissioning as well. I do not hold any grudges against the National Guard. It may seem that I'm frustrated. I am a little frustrated, but that is my personal feelings in this matter. It does not impact it at all. I did make some bad decision, just sent the message to the wrong person, and I should have double checked. So that's probably on me, even though they're gonna say that it did not impact the decision at all. I have a feeling that it probably did. So if you have any questions in regards to commissioning, if you have any comments, if you disagree with my decision, or if you have any critique or criticisms of me, please leave it in the comment below. I love reading it, and we can kind of have a discussion in the comment. If you have any question about commissioning I don't want this to discourage anyone from joining the Air Force or the Guard or anything. The Air Force is one of the best branches to join. That's why it's so hard to commission into it, because your standard of living as a commissioned officer in the Air Force is a lot higher than other branches. So don't let this discourage you guys from joining. All right, guys. Thank you for listening and tuning in, and bye bye.